Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming to see us today. We are going to do a discussion today about the delegate selection process for the 2020 Democratic National Convention. Everyone's going to introduce himself in just a second, but I just wanted to give kind of an overview of what we're going to be talking about. So what we're talking about is what the next year looks like. If you're someone who's interested in being a delegate, if you want to help people be elected as delegate, and of course if you want to help Oregon reach our goals for diversity and representation in our delegation, because of course our goal is to have a delegation that's representative of our population. So we're talking about that today. We're not talking about the rules and that's boring. Right now we're talking about how to be a delegate and what that looks like. Over the next year, we're going to have a ton of trainings and webinars, and we'll go over all of those things. But today, we're really focused on, if you want to be a delegate, what that looks like, and or if you want to help people run as delegate, what that looks like. So, to introduce myself, my name is Emmons. I'm the operations director here at the Democratic Party of Oregon. I'm our point person for the 2020 convention, and I was our lead staff for our 2016 delegate nominating conventions as well. So 2016 was my first convention. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really excited to get to work with everyone this year. And I've been really fortunate to spend a lot of time this year traveling to the ASDC meetings and DNC meetings and working with other states and kind of helping new staff in other states, specifically some of the rural states that don't have the democratic infrastructure that we have in Oregon, help make plans for their 2020 process as well. So I'm really excited to share some of the stuff I've learned and work with all of you next year.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Travis Nelson. I'm one of the elected DNC persons, along with Tanya and Matt. I was appointed by former State Party Chair Gene Atkins to serve as chair of the 2020 Delegate Selection Committee. I'm a board-certified registered nurse. And my only experience in going to the convention was in 2016, where I was a delegate for Hillary Clinton to the Democratic National Convention. At that time, I was Black Caucus chair and hadn't yet been elected DNC member, so the whole experience was very new to me, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was complicated. As you may recall, there was a little division in the party with Bernie and Hillary that, that kind of happened, but other than that, things went pretty smoothly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to 2020, and looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully all of you will come out of this panel discussion being better informed on what it will take to be a delegate from Oregon to the 2020 convention.
Hi, I'm Tanya Shively, and as Travis said, I'm one of the DNC members. My first attempt to be a delegate was in 2008, and I ran at the CD level, and I did not make it, and I didn't understand the process enough to know that I could have gone on to the state level. And so what we're hoping to do is make sure that everyone understands all of the options that they have so that you don't give up too soon. I was elected at the CD level for 2012. And that was Obama's re-election, and like I said earlier, it was a party. We had a blast in Charlotte. It was great. And then I was elected at the state level as a party leader elected official in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. And so I've had 3 very different experiences running and attending the conventions. But one thing I wanted to say is, you don't have to be at the top of the ladder to make it to a DNC member. I'm going to put a plug in here. I started as county party secretary, got elected to the SCC, became the Democratic Party of Oregon secretary, and became a DNC member. So, I don't have a legislative background. I don't have a labor background. I'm just one of the average, ordinary grassroots, workaholics. And so it's possible. You don't have to start at the top to be a DNC member. And so keep that in mind. It's something, if you would like to be a DNC member, talk to us and we can give you some ideas on that too. That's different from the convention that we're talking about, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm Matt Keating, one of your 3 DNC members. And I just wanted to say hi and thank you for being here to Representative Meek, Representative Wilde, and three folks who I met at the 2008 Democratic National Convention. Dr. Rosa Colhead is here. Commissioner Annabelle Armamino is here. Former Vice Chair Karen Packer is here. We met at the convention in 2008 and have forged friendships and alliances since. Karen, you and I were just talking last night. We met in Denver at the Delegate Works program that Michelle Obama put on, packaging food for those most in need in Colorado, which was very cool. I'd love to see us return to some sort of community works project when we go to Milwaukee. I've attended 3 national conventions on behalf of Oregon. As I alluded to, I was a delegate in 2008. At the time, I was much younger and about 30 pounds lighter. And I was honored to return as a statewide delegate, national delegate in 2012 and again in 2016. In 2008, I advocated, I was the second youngest, if memory serves, the second youngest delegate in the state of Oregon at age 32? 32, I was the second youngest. Now, flash forward to the 2020 National Convention, we have a youth representational goal that is just under 30%, just over 30%. Travis will talk about this, but our youth representational goal is about a third of our delegation. And so it's great to actually see that we have a whole diverse array of delegates that will be attending, so the state looks, or so our delegation looks more representative. But it's nice to actually see such an infusion of youth energy. Look forward to a spirited conversation and answering any questions that come up. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for introducing yourself, everyone. So we have a couple things. We're going to do like a little chat and kind of talk about different areas of expertise. And then we have some questions, just things that people have asked me on the internet and things like that. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions from everyone. So if you have questions, hold, because we might answer them in what we already have planned. And then if we don't, then you can get to them. The first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the timeline of the process for what the next year looks like. So the first thing that we have on your seats are these little handouts. This is a lot of information. I totally get it, so I wanted to kind of give you the run through. So between now and March 1st, the DPO will be doing educational workshops like this, we'll be doing webinars, we'll be doing all that stuff. And if you're somebody who wants to be a delegate, what you should be doing is plugging in with the primary campaign of the candidate you support. So you're getting to know people that work for that, or that are involved with that campaign, you're being active and engaged. On March 1st is when filing opens. So that's the first day that you can go on the DPO website and say, I want to be a delegate to the 2020 convention, or I want to vote in the 2020 state convention, or things like that. So that's the day filing opens. And then you keep working on your campaigns. You knock doors for your local candidates, you get out the vote, you do all the things you're supposed to do as good Democrats. And on May 21st, on May 19th, sorry, I skipped a kind of a big one. On May 19th is Oregon's vote by mail primary. So in Oregon, I know you've probably heard there's caucus states and all that they do their delegate selection a whole different way. In Oregon, we base our delegate apportionment off of the results of the primary. So every registered Democrat in Oregon gets to vote in the primary. Those results come in, and then we look at those results and say, okay, Minnie Mouse got 70% of the vote in Oregon, so she gets 70% of the delegates. Clarabelle Cow got 30% of the vote, so she gets 30% of the delegates. And that's how we apportion delegates. So it doesn't matter if Clarabelle Cow has 10,000 people that show up at our convention that want to support her, she still only gets the delegates she won in the primary. So that's the primary, and we give ourselves to May 22nd, so a good portion of the votes are counted before we apportion it, before we split it up. On May 21st is when the filing form closed. So it's a couple days after the primary. It gives you a chance, if you were working too hard to get online and register, you can still do that until May 21st. And that's when our filing form closes, and after that day you can't sign up to be a delegate or participate in those conventions after that. You're still welcome to come and visit, but that's the deadline if you want to participate in our delegate selection process. So on May 25th, something happens called the Presidential Candidate Right of Review. This is something the DPO is required to do by the DNC. We send out the list of everyone who wanted to be a delegate. So Clarabelle Cow, these are the 7,000 people that wanted to be a delegate for you. That campaign looks at that list and either says, yep, all these people are really supporters of me, I'm cool with them running as delegates. Or they say, no, actually, like these 10 people, I know for a fact that they were canvassing for Minnie Mouse last weekend and I don't want them to be my delegates. Or really, they don't have to give us a reason, they can just take people off the list. So that's something the candidates get to do. We like to tell people that up front so that you don't yell at me next May if that happens. Hopefully it won't happen. It didn't happen at all in Oregon in 2016. It did happen in other states. So, after that, the first time to show up and vote is June 6th and 7th. So not both of those days, but over that weekend, we'll be having a convention in each congressional district. By March 1st, when we open up filing, we'll know what day it's going to be in each district, but they'll all be that weekend. So you'll have one day to show up. At those conventions, and Tanya's going to talk a little bit more about this, but at these conventions, you'll go into a room of supporters who support your candidate. And all that happens at these conventions is the supporters of that candidate choose the delegates from the district level. So there'll be people in each congressional district, there'll be apportioned to your congressional district, and they'll say, these are the people that supporters of Clarabelle Cow will vote for the delegates for Clarabelle Cow, right? It's getting really kind of getting fast and loose here with this candidate names. So that's all that happens at the district convention, and then we elect delegates to go on to our state convention. The state convention takes place on June 20th, and that's a very similar process except for it's the whole state. So, and Tanya's going to talk a little bit more about the different levels of delegates, but at the state convention we'll elect our party leader elected official delegates and our at-large delegates and alternates. After that, as soon as that convention comes to a close, we will have a delegation meeting where all the delegates will get together, they'll choose their delegation chair, and we'll have a very fun logistics meeting that everyone's going to be super stoked to sit through. It's going to be great. And so that's a lot of information, but that's kind of the rundown, and we're going to get into more details about it. And then, of course, a few weeks later is the Democratic National Convention, which is I apparently not on a piece of paper, so I'm that's in the next round. But it is it's July 13th through 18th of 2020 in Milwaukee. So that's what the next year looks like for the delegate process. And now I'm going to pass it on to Travis, who's going to talk a little bit about our diversity and representation goals, and we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks. Hello. So when our committee met, we met as a diverse group with the goal of having a discussion about the things the DNC is making us do and the things that the DNC gives us leeway to change. Diversity representation goals are something that the DNC says we have to have. They say we have to have essentially an affirmative action plan. They also tell us that our delegation has to be gender balanced, and that's something that has to be done. However, as it relates to the representation and diversity goals, they are not quotas, they are goals. However, Oregon, we've been successful for the last few presidential cycles and surpassing our representation goals. So if you turn in the packet that you were given, there's going to be a page that says Delegate Selection for the 2020 Democratic National Convention. We've got a total of 74 delegates, and when we were doing our work, we looked at a bunch of different data. We looked at census data. We got feedback from the members on the committee, and formulating our goals, we were looking at Democrats specifically in Oregon because we wanted to be as representative of those who vote for Democrats statewide as possible. So if you look, our goal for African Americans is 4%, which would be more or less 3 delegates. For Latinx, the goal is 9 delegates or 12% of our delegation. For Native Americans, it's 3%. Or 2 delegates. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, 5% or 4 delegates. LGBTQ plus Americans, 10% or 8 delegates. And people with disabilities, 25% or 19 delegates. Now this is a little different than what had been done in the past. In the past, the DNC had told us that that people with disabilities were people with physical disabilities. And this time around, that has been that scope has been broadened to include folks with other types of non-physical disabilities or invisible disabilities. So those who have invisible disabilities, along with folks who have visible disabilities, we're shooting to get 25% of our delegation to be folks with disabilities. Young Democrats, we are looking at, our target is 31% or 23 members of our delegation to be young Democrats. A lot of people think that a young Democrat is somebody under the age of 21, under the age of 25, or even under the age of 30. And actually the DNC, because people in our party who are active tend to be over the age of 40, actually states that a young Democrat is anyone under the age of 36. So if you are under the age of 36 and you want to run to be a delegate, you will be able to list yourself as a young Democrat. We added a couple of new categories. This is something else the DNC let state parties do that they hadn't let state parties do in the past. Add categories in areas where they feel folks are underrepresented in our state. So our delegate selection committee, we had a lot of robust discussion about additional categories that we would like to add. And the two that we settled on were rural Democrats. Both Tanya, Matt, and myself, along with others on the committee, have heard folks from rural Oregon loud and clear that they view the Democratic Party as being one that doesn't pay enough attention to rural voters, as it is inclusive of rural voters, and we want to see that change. I live in Portland. I live in one of the most diverse urban districts in our state, but yet I recognize the need to make sure that our party is reaching out and being fully inclusive of rural Oregonians. So our target is 19% of our delegation and 14 members of our delegation being rural Democrats. We also added veterans. You know, the Republican Party, go ahead and move, Cindy, I see you over there. It's all good. So, you know, for whatever reason, the Republican Party is the party that gets the credit for being some would say that, but the party that really respects and acknowledges veterans, and we wanted to do that in our delegate selection plan. So we have a target of 3% or at least 2 members of our delegation being veterans. And so I look forward to taking more of your questions, but I hope that gives you a good basic understanding of the process that we use to arrive at our targets and the targets for the diversity and representation goals. Also, when you are running, you'll list whether you're African American, LGBTQ+. Like for instance, last time around, I listed that I was African American and that I was LGBTQ+. When I ran and was elected at the delegate level. There are people who will be able to say, yes, I represent multiple areas as it relates to the diversity and representation goals. So that's generally helpful in helping you to get elected, but it's not the end all be all. So I'm going to pass it off to Tanya, who's going to speak more about running as a delegate.
Okay, in your same packet there, you have a screenshot of what the filing form is going to look like. And before we get too much in the weeds on that, I want to do a little bit of definitions. You're going to hear the word convention, and we have 3 different levels of convention. One is the congressional district convention that elects delegates. The second one is the state convention that elects delegates, and then there's the national convention. And so, if you have specific questions, keep in mind that the word convention can mean, 3 different things. In the same way with delegate, you can run to be a delegate to the national convention. You can run to be a delegate just at the congressional district level. You can run to be a delegate at the state convention. And so when we go through the filing form, I'll try to break that down a little bit for you so that you can understand the different levels that they have. It's really very easy to file. When the website comes up on March 1st, You just go in there, and I love this, you put in your name, Mickey Mouse, your birth date, your preferred language, your preferred pronouns, and your gender. And this time around, there is male, female, and non-binary. And then your address, and make sure that you put down your street address. Because that's where we check to see
Your voting address.
voting address, because that's where they check to make sure that you're signed up for the correct congressional district.
And that you're a registered Democrat.
And that you're a registered Democrat, yes. And please fill out the email and phone numbers. It's for internal use. It's not like they're gonna be selling this to anybody. But if you have any questions at all on your filing form, they need to be able to get in touch with you quickly. Okay, and then on the back side, you're running as a pledged delegate to a particular candidate. And so you have to choose your candidate. In this case, it's Clarabelle. But if you would rather vote, Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse or whatever candidate it is, you have to pick your candidate. Especially after the March Super Tuesdays, your candidate drops out, you can go back in and change your candidate. It's not it's not an end all that this is who I pick and that's who you're whatever. So but you definitely have to pledge to a particular candidate. And so I recommend, if you want to be a delegate to the National Convention, you sign up to be a delegate to the congressional district level. You sign up to be a delegate elected to the state convention, and you sign to be a delegate to the National Convention. That's where I made my mistake the first time I ran. I only signed up as a delegate to the congressional district.
If I can, on this.
Yes.
So on this filing form, you can see these are little drop downs. So what we did last time, there were like all these little check boxes, and so you had to be like a psychic to know what boxes to check to do all those things. So now you say, at the district convention, I want to participate in the following way, and the options will be really clear. So as you can see here, it says Mickey only wants to vote at the district convention. He doesn't want to be a delegate to the state or national convention. And so there'll be a drop down for all the different options. And so what Tanya's saying is, if you really want to get elected, what you're going to say is, I want to be a delegate to the state convention, and I want to be a delegate to the national convention, because then if you don't get elected at the district level, you can try again at the state.
Yeah, if you look at the screenshot, you can see the little arrows. And so just like any electronic form, you're just gonna click on there and find the one that works for you. And at the Congressional District Convention, we elect a total of 300 delegates to the state convention. And I don't have the breakdown as to which congressional districts get how many delegates. But what you wanna do is you want to run as a delegate so that you can vote for yourself at the state convention. You want to get your friends to also run as a delegate. And just to say a little bit about that, right now you should be doing two things. One, raising a lot of money, and two, getting your family, your friends, every registered Democrat you know in your congressional district to sign up to be a delegate to the congressional district level, that they can vote for you. Because, just like any election, no matter what it is, the person with the most votes wins. And so you need to make sure that you get all of your friends and family there, especially if you live outside of a metro area. In the 4th Congressional District, Lane County has a distinct advantage. They really do. But if the other counties can get enough people together, you can elect from the smaller counties at the congressional district level. Definitely is doable. And then to continue on here, at the state convention level, there are two categories: the party leader elected official and the at-large. And the party leader elected official, you can run as a party leader if you are elected to basically anything above PCP. So if you are a county officer, if you are a caucus officer, a congressional district officer, you can run as a party leader. And the elected officials are any elected official, school board, water board, Lane Community College is one. County commissioner is another. So it's any elected official all the way from water district up to state representative and state senate. And so if you're eligible for that, sign up for that also. And then there's the at-large. So make sure that you sign up for all of the categories that you can file for. then make sure that you fill out your representation goals. And as Travis mentioned, there are some people that are going to fill 3, maybe even 4 of these representation goals. And that is great. Oregon has prided itself on surpassing their representation goals. And we don't want this election to be the one that we don't make it. And if you are a young Democrat, you can raise money. There are GoFundMe accounts that you can set up. Go to your county party and see if there is some way that you can get your county party to help. Because it is, it does cost money, there's no question about that. And so once you get this filing form done, you submit it, and you will receive notification back from the DPO that it was submitted and received. If you don't receive something from them within a week, you probably should get in touch with Candy. And so basically my main takeaways from this is right now you need to start getting your friends to say, hey, I need you to show up for me on this date, and you need to start raising money. And like I've told people in the past, you raise your money, you get ready to go, and if for some reason you don't make it, you've got a nice stockpile of money there you can go to Tahiti.
I'm going to stand so folks in the back can see. Is that okay with the live stream?
Yep, you're good.
Great. Yeah, I'm on the agenda to talk about running a campaign for delegate. Tanya kind of hit the nail on the head. The secret sauce, the formula to success is to get the most votes. Can you repeat that after me? How do you win? Get the most votes. And so, in order to get the most votes, like any campaign, you need voters, volunteers, and dollars. And you need to tell a story: who you are, why you're running, and not only what you've done, but what you're going to continue to do. And it's that last part that I want to talk about this morning. It does feel like that. What you're going to do, hopefully, is continue to be engaged with the Democratic Party, work your tail off to repeal and replace Donald, he who shall not be named, and work to elect Democrats all up and down the ticket. And regardless of who you came into the convention supporting, because we're all, especially in 2020, we're likely to see multiple candidates on our ballot come May 19th, 2020. But regardless of who you are pledged to, at the end of the day, we have a nominee. We are a united delegation. And it's important that when we go to the Democratic National Convention that we stand with our 57 states and territories united in order to push back against this radical, right-wing, dangerous, fascist administration. So I just want to illustrate the importance of working together. It's why I kicked off the top of our conversation how much I was impressed with the Delegate Works program, because that brought in 2008 Hillary and Obama delegates together. We were on the same page. We were on the same team. And I think we need to celebrate that return to form, and that unity is ultimately going to win the day. Tanya, you also mentioned the larger counties tending to have, in the past, kind of an uneven, lopsided advantage. And in the Delegate Selection Plan Committee, we attempted to mitigate that by having this rural, it's just one of the many reasons why rural representation matters. And so a 19 percentage points, which is around 14 delegates representing our rural communities, will allow for an increased rural voice as part of our delegation. I'm really proud of that, and I think we're going to see a more equitable approach, and our rural counties are going to be represented better. And nevertheless, we did have in 2008 Dean Byers in it, from Douglas County, and I were the two male delegates who were elected. In 2016, Justin Bryce from Benton County, and I were the two delegates who were elected. We were Bernie delegates in 2016. As a Bernie delegate, I loved what Senator Sanders in 2016 was saying, and moved the party to the left for all the right reasons. But it was important for me as I stood right in that great hall with Commissioner Annabelle Harmamil, with Senator Merkley, to stay and shift my allegiance to Secretary Clinton, arguably one of the most, if not the most experienced candidates to ever run for the office of the presidency. And did what Senator Sanders asked us to do. And I worked my tail off as hard if not harder, to try and elect Hillary in the fall of 2016, the general election, and for Democrats all up and down the ticket. So Democrats today in this great hall, Democrats listening online and to our live stream, when you run for a delegate position, when you unite your team, when you bring volunteers and new voices and new faces into this political process and into our party, encourage them to stay engaged. But regardless of who our nominee is, it's beyond vote blue no matter who, it's vote blue against you know who, and take back our White House. Thanks, folks.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. So now we've got some prepped questions. I'm gonna put them in a different order than they have sitting in front of them right now, which they're gonna love, because I think some things came up that I wanna hit first. So one of the things that came up a couple times is cost, right? What does it cost? And I know that's a thing that affects everyone. So I'm going to ask them to weigh in on this, but the first thing I wanted to say is just to clarify, we do not charge you a fee to run to be a delegate.
No.
There is no fee to enter the building at the national convention. The costs we're talking about are the travel expenses to get yourself there, because of course you got it. Those are on you. So a couple things that have come up in the past are, does the campaign pay for my expenses? Does does the DPO pay for my? No. So your travel expenses are on you. The DPO will work really hard. We're working to figure out some financial assistance programs. They're going to be pretty small. That's what we're able to do. But we're also work hard to keep down costs as much as we can. So we know our delegation hotel has been assigned to us very early for the first time ever. I went out and visited it a few weeks ago, and it is about 30 minutes away from the convention center in traffic, which is a great location. We were an hour and a half away in traffic last time. And we know that the cost of those rooms is about $319 a night, which is expensive, but not as expensive as the downtown hotels that are upwards of $600 a night, right? So we made it, when we were putting in our bid, we made it really clear to the DNC, hey, we would rather be a little farther away if it makes it more affordable for people. So when we're talking about meals and things like that, we're gonna do everything we can as a party to work and negotiate on some of those pricing and things like that, so we can keep some things down for you guys. So the question I wanted to ask these folks is, what do you think are a range of expenses for folks that might be attending, and is it worth it to stay in the delegation hotel? And so those are I think big questions. Oh yeah, you can have your sheet back.
Yes, it is worth it to stay in the delegation hotel.
Yeah,
and the reason for that is you get your credentials in the morning. Sometimes it's like 7 a.m. and if you're staying at another, every day you've got to be there on time to get your credential. And if you're staying miles away, traffic may get you. There's a ton of people that are going to be in Milwaukee for this convention. The city is going to be packed. Stay at the delegation hotel. 2016 was my first time going to a convention, and I believe I spent about $2,500 out of pocket. And what was so nice is I belong to several unions, and the best piece of advice I got was reach out to your union to see if they will help you. And actually, AFT, who I belong to, I believe I got about $1,500 from AFT, and I think I got another $1,500 from the Teamsters, and that more than covered my costs. So if you belong to a professional organization or to unions, reach out. Ask if they have anything to help, because they want their members, these different professional organizations, doctors associations, nursing associations, they want their members to go and represent them and tell them, hey, I'll be on the floor wearing your buttons and stickers, gladly representing the union or the professional organization. And I was pleasantly surprised to find that they were more than willing to help.
Another way you can help save some money is you at least double up in rooms. Some people, they had 4 to a room, which cut the cost significantly. I had one friend that went in 2012, and he had a deal with one of the newspapers to send back a daily report, and they paid some of his costs. So there are some, very interesting ways to get some money.
You can also save some dollars and get a little creative, and it's part of your story, part of your narrative. I'm the only delegate, at least in modern history, perhaps in the history of the state of Oregon, to take the train to 3 consecutive national conventions. Eugene to Denver. At the time, I was working in South Florida to defeat Allen West, so I took it from Palm Beach Gardens up to Charlotte, South Carolina, and then in 2016, from Eugene, Portland, all the way to Philly. Taking that train allows me to have to be a climate change delegate and to start to have a conversation with national press and local press about the importance of our carbon footprint. If you're going to fundraise, know the law.
Yes.
You cannot fundraise as a team. Now, you can run as a slate, certainly. I ran independently in 08, I ran independently in 12, and I ran independently in 16. So I don't necessarily recommend it, but it's worked for some folks. There might be folks on your slate who may be more divisive or may not stand out as much as you, so you may be splitting your energies. But you cannot raise funds together.
We'll be having lots of campaign finance workshops regarding it. No one at the Democratic Party of Oregon is giving campaign finance advice.
True.
But there are some pretty strict rules with the FEC. So there is a way to fundraise as a slate, but it requires you to file reports with the FEC like a congressional PAC. So it's not recommended because it's a real pain in the butt. But there are some documents that we can share with folks if they're interested, but I'm not going to help you with your compliance, nor am I going to pay your fees to the FEC if you do it wrong. So I think it's highly recommended that you do not fundraise jointly, but there are some options out there for folks, and you can, of course, fundraise individually, and there are some guidelines around that too, but they're pretty basic. So a lot of our delegates fundraised very successfully in 2016 using GoFundMe and things like that once they were elected, right? Because obviously if I'm a bona fide supporter of a candidate and I don't get elected to be their delegate and I've got a little pocket change I was setting aside, I'm willing to donate to the person who did get elected to make sure that my candidate is still represented at the convention. So a lot of folks did pitch in 2016, and I imagine that will be the same in 2020.
Right.
Sorry.
Go ahead. That's all good. Just bottom line, know the law.
Know the law. Don't make the law. I think that's really important. And my estimates, and I have a little sheet that's on ours. We have a website. It's dpo.org/2020, where all of these documents and more are there. And there's also a breakdown of pricing and kind of some options. So I was talking to someone about this last night. And yeah, if you're somebody, we had a lot of young Dems do this. We had a lot of old Dems do this. They're not old, older Dems do this in 2016, that, if you're willing to do 4 people to a room, if you're willing to fly in on the cheapest Southwest flight, or Spirit, don't fly Spirit, but if you're willing to fly in on the cheapest flights and do that, you can go for really cheap, right? If you're someone who wants to pack a lunch, you can save money. There's ways to do it for pretty cheap. And if you're someone that wants to have a luxurious vacation, there's ways to do that too, right? So, but all those things. And one other comment on the Delegation Hotel. So yes, credentials are given out at 7 a.m. every morning. You have to be at the Delegation Hotel to get your credentials. If you miss it, your credentials go away. You don't get into the building to vote and participate in the convention. So it's very important, which is why we encourage people to stay at our hotel. Those hotels are also in a room block that has pricing that's been negotiated. So it is of course possible that someone's gonna be able to find a cheaper place to stay, but I can tell you that I was looking for cheaper places to stay because we also have to pay as a party to send our staff to convention, and there's gonna be 40,000 people extra in Milwaukee that week. So it's unlikely that you're going to find a cheaper place to stay. So just keeping those things in mind, but you can, I would expect to spend between, $1,500 and, $3,000-$4,000 depending on how fancy, how much swag you buy, all those things. And we'll have time for questions in a minute. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. on a little more esoteric question is, why do you think people should attend the National Convention, and what do you wish you had known when you attended your first convention?
Oh, thank you. Going to a national convention was on my bucket list. It was something I had wanted to do for a long time. The excitement there. I mean, it's fine watching it on TV. You get some of it, but being in that room is something that you just can't describe. It is amazing. The people you see, the elected officials that are there, the personalities that show up. It was an awesome, both conventions that I've been at, I've been, extremely pleased with everything that has come away from the conventions. So yes, it is something I would recommend anybody. You don't get a whole lot of sleep, that's okay. You can sleep when you get home. So what I wish I would have known, like I said earlier, I wish I would have known how to run as a delegate better. But as far as the convention itself, I wish I would have taken better shoes. Fashion be damned. wear comfortable shoes, because you are going to be doing a lot of walking, a lot of standing. So yeah, that's what I wish I would have known.
When you go to a convention, whether it's a congressional district convention or a state convention, especially the national convention, you're part of the primary source document. You are part of living, breathing history. That's wildly inspiring. So I would just say, take in the moment, find some quiet time to reflect. In 2008, I did a lot of video. It's on my YouTube channel. In 2016, I wrote a lot more than I did a lot of the videography. In 2012, I took a lot more pictures. Just find some downtime, find some time to decompress and tell the story of your experience advocating for our party and for our nominee. And if I had to maybe pass on some knowledge that Governor Roberts passed on to me, is pace yourself. Oh, yeah. Don't try to do everything. Just take your time, find the conferences or caucuses that you want to attend, and be in the moment.
Yeah, there are some fun workshops there. There really are. So that's another reason to go.
Yeah, I echo what Matt said about the best part. Being a part of history was phenomenal, and just knowing that, there was a lot of strife at the 2016 National Convention. But looking back on it, that was one of the best parts to me. I was a Hillary delegate, but I made a lot of friends with folks who were Bernie delegates, and while it was heated at times there, I've got friendships that have continued to last since the 2016 convention. The other best part is just the networking in general. I had done a lot of healthcare and labor activism in the Pacific Northwest, but when you go to the convention, there are folks from all over the country, and every territory gets representation as well. So you'll meet people from Guam, Puerto Rico, the Marianas Islands, who are doing similar things that you're doing in their parts of the world, which is really, really cool. If there's one thing I wish I had known about the convention before going, I guess one of the things was that there's a DNC meeting that takes place after that's semi-open to the public. But I was really fortunate in the fact that I'm somebody who asks a lot of questions. And because I asked a lot of questions, I found out about like the different events the caucuses were having and the parties the caucuses were going to be holding. The American Nurses Association had an event that I attended. The American Federation of Teachers had a luncheon that I got clued in on because I got asked, or because I asked. Teamsters had a luncheon that I asked about, and they were like, oh yeah, we have an event. And I showed up, and I'm one of 10 people with with Jimmy Hoffa Jr. And and so I got to have lunch with Jimmy Hoffa Jr., who's president of the Teamsters. So just those type of experiences were really phenomenal, and I will never forget it. And the 2016 convention, looking back on it, I didn't know it at the time, but being a part of that experience really changed my life. So I highly recommend that you do it if it's something that even interests you a little bit. I got something really big into the DPO after. Well, Trump really did it for me. Trump got elected, and that's when I decided to run for the DNC.
Labor candidate school, future governor.
Yeah, Travis is with us forever now. I had never attended a convention before 2016, and I attended as staff, which is obviously a bit of a different experience. And I think going into it, I've been to so many events like this, like really great political events with really wonderful energy. They're just so amazing. And but I was kind of like, oh, I get up at 7 a.m. and things go until midnight. Like I'm definitely gonna have time for a nap. No, because you are living in a part of history. And so when you look at your choices, and it's like, oh, I can either go to this women's caucus meeting where Nancy Pelosi is gonna be there with all of these other wonderful, amazing female leaders, and Madeleine Albright, and it's like, oh, or I can go take a nap. It's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna go to the women's caucus meeting, right? So what I would say is, really, when we're saying you're not gonna get a lot of sleep, you're not gonna get a lot of sleep. Like I was staff, so again, it was different. I slept a total of 11 hours the week of the convention. But I was working, so it was a little different. But so as a delegate, you'll be able to get a little more sleep than that, but not that much more. So just keep that in mind. What I will say is, as someone who attends political events, as a staffer, the 2016 convention was more than I could have ever imagined, right? There was something about, sorry, I'm getting emotional. These guys hyped me up. About sitting in the room when Michelle Obama gives the "when they go low, we go high" speech, right? And being there and being present in that energy, that I would recommend to anyone. So if you're someone that sounds even a little bit interesting, I would really consider it, because it was a really amazing experience. It's not just another party, it's not just another convention, it's a moment in history. And even if the election doesn't work out the way you expected it would, which it obviously didn't, I'm still glad I got to be there. So, so the last thing I wanted to have as our prepped question, and then we'll go into it, and this is something that is a really important discussion to have, is how our county parties, our caucuses, our leaders from other groups across the state, our elected leaders, everyone can help the DPO in reaching our diversity and representation goals. So as a reminder, they are goals, they're not a quota, but that means that we really have to reach out to folks that maybe aren't as engaged in our process right now, to get them engaged in our process, so that we can make sure that the voices that we send to represent Oregon at the National Convention are voices that really represent all of us. So I'm going to pass down the mic, and I'll let Travis give it a go.
Travis, take that one.
Well, I'll let Matt go first.
Look,
Trendy.
these because of these great representational goals we have to do a better job of reaching like-minded allied organizations in the community. And so it goes beyond just our county parties. It's incumbent on every one of us to have the conversations, from students to seniors, and the wide, diverse array of Democrats in between. Have conversations with Latinx, with NAACP members, with library boards. You go everywhere in your community to have this conversation. Don't limit it to your local county party or your CDs. We've made attempts at this in the past, and I think it's a ripe opportunity to make a more concerted effort to ensure we have the most diverse delegation in the history of Oregon and the history of these United States.
Yeah, we had a very, very diverse group in our delegate selection committee, and we've got a diverse affirmative action committee as well. And one of the things I would say is, if you're interested in having myself or any of us up here come and speak to your group, or if there's a group that you think would benefit from hearing from us, please let me know. I'm willing to connect with any of you, give you a card, figure out a time to talk. Because we have to if we're going to make our party more diverse and truly more representative, not just for the convention but in the long term, we got to go to people go to people where they're at, right? And so I'm more than willing to do that. After the new year, we'll really be ramping that up. I'm planning on meeting with folks from various different diverse organizations and really teaching them about how to become a delegate and teaching them more about how to get involved with the state party. So that's the number one thing I would say if you're interested in having additional conversation. If you know folks who may have shown some interest in the party or going to the convention but don't really know exactly what to do, refer them to me. I'll have a conversation, because in order to be successful, especially if you really haven't been involved in the party infrastructure in the past, it really is important that you get started now. At our district conventions, we're expecting hundreds, if not thousands of people. At the state convention, there will likely be thousands of people, and the person who wins is the person who wins the spot are going to be the people who run really good campaigns and the people who get their people there. So it does take a level of organizing, and I'm more than willing to help offer advice and support and do recruitment along with other members of our affirmative action committee.
I think you guys have covered it, so why don't we open it up for audience questions?
Awesome. I did want to add one thing, and this might be a little controversial, but I want to say it anyways. And I think another way we can work on this as a team, as a party, is also being thoughtful about, am I the right person to be running? And is there somebody in my community that would represent my community better that I can throw my support behind? Because there might be people in this room that are saying, well, I don't really think I want to be awake all those hours every day, but I know a young Latina woman who's active in my community that's been working really hard for a candidate, and what can I do to support her? So I think that's something that we can all try to be mindful of in this process, and that's something I would encourage folks to do. I'm not discouraging anyone from running. If you want to run, but if you're not all in 100%, really be thinking about how you can be supporting other folks. So, and I know we have some questions now. I only have one mic, so I'm going to ask people to be loud, and then I'll repeat the question back so that everyone can hear. So, Frank, you have a question?
Yeah. I ran to get my seat. I was an incumbent on the Planning and Resolutions Committee, Platform Resolutions rather, and I made a statement at the start when we were running for the office that I didn't think that Jill Stein organizers, voters should be running for party office. And I didn't get reelected, and I suspect that's the reason why. But I'm still upset about it, that people had that little sense. And you said that some people could be excluded. I hope that those people could be excluded. Because, I'd like to go, but I'd rather see them not go.
I understand. So, I can't speak to your personal experience. What's it called? The presidential candidate right of review is not a process the DPO has anything to do with. We don't get to dictate anything to the campaigns. What I would say is that if you're a supporter of a candidate, if you're all in for a candidate and you know that people who are running are not really supporters of that candidate, the best way to make that heard is to go talk to the people that you're involved with on the campaign. Because they're the people that will say, hey, this person isn't a bona fide supporter, right? That's what they're looking at, and make sure they're not able to run as a delegate. Yeah, Rosa?
Hello everyone, my name is Rosa Homewood and I chair the Black Caucus for the DPO. This is my question, and I have attended the conventions, and like Travis, it completely changed my whole life and that for my family. I want to understand the criteria for monies that are given by the DPO to people who want to attend. And I do think there should be criteria such as, are they registered Democrats other than the primary season to vote for their candidates? Are they working to elect Democratic candidates? What are they doing with the Democratic Party? If this is the only criteria, I don't have any money.
The criteria has not been set yet, nor what the program looked like has been set yet. So we just got our delegate selection plan approved from the DNC, so those things are still working out. What I will tell you is the financial support the DPO is able to offer is very, very small. We use our money as a party to elect Democrats and to work really hard. to do that. So I think the largest award somebody got in 2016 was about $300. There was a form that people asked a bunch of questions, and some of those questions were a part of that, right? So we said, you know, are you a registered Democrat? What have you done to be involved? What are you going to do after? All of those things. There was a process, and our administration committee reviewed those applications and chose who won scholarship. So I wasn't privy to those conversations. I would say if you have concerns, that's a great thing to talk about with our admin committee and our executive officers, because they're the ones who will make that choice, but those criteria haven't been set yet. So I'm gonna get this guy and then I'll come back.
Hi, thank you. Mike Marshall with Oregon Recovers. Two quick questions. Travis, you said that there seems to be a change or an expansion of the disabilities definition. I wonder if that's available somewhere so that people know whether that is relevant to their personal identity or health.
Anyone who self-identifies as a person with disabilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, how big are these congressional CD conventions? Like, how many votes do the winners get, basically, in terms of? Is it thousands of people? Is it hundreds of people?
100 people.
The congressional district convention is open to any registered Democrat that files. So as of this stage, we have no idea. It could be, 50. It could be 5,000. So until
in the past.
So
in the past.
here's what I will say. In the past, in 2016, the largest congressional district convention was in Portland. It was a CD3 convention. We had about 1,800 people signed up to be in that convention. The next largest was Lane County. CD4, sorry. I will be clear, we have not chosen sites, and so I'm getting a little bit of shade over here. We've not chosen sites. I don't know where things are going to be this time. But it was a CD4 convention. I was staffing the Bernie caucus, and I think there were just over 400 people in that caucus. The numbers really vary by district, but what I will say is every event the DPO has had since the 2016 conventions has been the largest one ever, right? So in 2016, our platform convention had 180 people actually show up. We had over 500 show up in 2018. So I am planning for absolutely monstrous, insane district conventions because we have to start booking spaces now. There's really, it's a real crapshoot. Basically, we could have quite a lot. What I will say is in CD2, and this is something we didn't discuss earlier, there has been a change made. Last time in CD2, we split the district. So you either had to, basically, if you lived in CD2, you only got to vote for half of the delegates apportioned to your district because it was CD2 North and CD2 South. And it wasn't fair, and that was the feedback. And we had done that before, and the idea was, we don't want people in CD2 to have to drive 11 hours to participate in this process, right? So that was why the change had been made, and we had done it a few times, and then in 2016, there was feedback, and there was a lot of discussion from the Delegate Selection Planning Committee on that. And so in CD2, we will have one in-person convention this time, and then folks who live in CD2 who pre-register will be able to vote for delegate using an online system that is secure and that's been vetted by the DNC. We haven't signed a contract on that yet. We're still working on that, but there's a lot of vendors that will do that. And because our delegates are portioned off the primary and not at the convention, we think this is a great way to increase participation because we did have less than 200 people participate in the CD2 convention in 2016 in the entire district, and we don't want that. So we want more. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say, in 2016, I wasn't a super delegate or an unpledged delegate, and I won a spot at the district level, and I did that by getting my neighbors, some of my neighbors, to actually come. They had to register beforehand, just saying they wanted to attend the district convention. But I got several of them to come with me, and I put together a little campaign where I put together flyers, was handing them out at the door, was handing them out as people signed in, was leaving them on chairs, and my neighbors and friends helped with that. And what you will see at the district convention and the state convention are people who have put together campaigns and are running campaigns. It's not overly complicated generally, but they're putting time, effort, and energy into doing it. And more often than not, those are the people who will end up getting elected.
Yeah, in 2008, Matt had this lovely little cooler of water bottles that he was giving out to everybody. Obama.
Oh,
yeah.
it was an R2D2 cooler.
Yeah, and when I ran in 2012, I gave out chocolate kisses, and in 2016, I had M&Ms with my name on them. So yeah, you're running a real campaign like you were any election, and the more you put into it, you need to make sure you've got the people there and get your information out. You can send emails, you can send letters, and there will be a voter's pamphlet.
Go ahead.
Oh, did you?
No, go ahead, it's fine. Move on. I'll tell that story another time.
Yes. I wanted to make sure
Tell
that
a
I
story.
I just wanted to know if the hotel or you guys arrange transportation from the hotel to the.
Yeah, there would be.
I'm not sure how to navigate many of
Yeah.
those.
No, the
Yeah.
DNC does.
Yes. So the DNC, the National Convention is a product of the Democratic National Committee, right? So the DNC assigns the hotels, they provide transportation. So we will have they haven't told us exactly how it'll be, but in 2016 there was like basically a bus route that went to like the 3 hotels that were near us and in like all day. Our hotel, we're sharing a hotel with the delegates from Maine and West Virginia, which is great for us because that means we can, that helps us with that negotiation on pricing and stuff like that because we've got the whole hotel, so there's no other groups in there. So, but yes, so the transportation is provided by the DNC. Last time they also provided a pass that got you from the airport to the hotel. They haven't told us if they're doing that again this time, but I would anticipate some sort of airport transportation as long as you fly in like the window that they tell you to, because if you fly in like a week before, they're not going to take care of you. So.
And if you are a delegate with any, especially physical disabilities, you need to make sure that is well known in advance so that we can make sure that transportation is arranged.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Yeah.
They also have passes from the train station to the hotel if you want to join me on Amtrak.
Or if you're Matt Keating and I have to drive you to the train station in a minute.
That's a story for another time.
To add on to that, yes, if you are a person with disabilities or anything that needs accommodation, because of course there are plenty of things that need accommodation like nursing or things like that, please note that when you file, and if your status changes after you file, please let me know. The DNC, in 2016, they did not do a very good job of accommodating people with disabilities and with special accommodations. This is my issue that I'm dealing with them every day, and we're really, all the state parties are working really hard to have some accountability there to make sure that our delegates have what they need to participate. So you gotta let me know so I can advocate for you and make sure the DNC does what they need to do.
Greg Haycock. My comment and question are a little off topic, but because many of the people in this room may want to attend the convention but won't be a delegate, my experience in 2008 was being a volunteer. And I got to attend workshops, I was like an usher, but I got to ask questions of people and everything else and meet an awful lot of people. And there were caucuses, and it was very exciting. And not as exciting as being in the room from what I'm hearing here, but probably not as expensive because I stay with friends. So I would suggest that you think of the convention in other ways if you don't end up being in that regard, because it's an exciting experience with an awful lot of people who are high profile around the world make comments about and try to deal with the problems that we're all trying to deal with, and you get to meet an awful lot of good people like Ben Affleck and others. Okay.
Yeah, the host committee is recruiting volunteers to help with events at the convention. You can go to their website to do that. What I will tell you is, they haven't said we're not taking out-of-state folks, but the host committee, and rightfully so, has made a commitment to work really hard to recruit people to volunteer at the convention, who then can be asked to continue to volunteer in the state of Wisconsin for their elections in 2020. So they're really working hard to say, hey, come volunteer for the national convention and then sign up for 10 canvassing shifts, right? Because we've got to flip Wisconsin. So I will say that they haven't done anything to indicate that they're only accepting in-state folks, but that's something they're trying really hard to do. So there may be less opportunities for out-of-state folks. And by the way, if the convention was in Oregon, I'd be wanting them to do the same thing. So that's absolutely the responsibility that the DNC should be doing.
Comment and a question. I'm Karen Packer, gone to 3 conventions, not going to this one. But I wanted to comment first. A lot of your food will be provided. When you stay at our convention hotel, breakfast is provided. You're kind of on your own a little bit. For lunch, like Travis said, there are a lot of luncheons going on. You can snag an invitation. Dinner, it's similar to here. There's a hell of a lot of parties, and I don't think I pay for any dinners, and hospitality suites. So that helps cut your expenses a little bit. My question is, this new representation goal of rural, could you define rural? Is it a city of a certain type? How do you define it?
So other than being a young Democrat, which you have to be under the age of 36, I don't care if you're young at heart, all of our diversity and representation goals are self-identified when you file, all of them. What I will say is that if you're someone who lives in downtown Portland and you're trying to canvass as a campaign as a rural Democrat, someone's gonna call you out for that, right? We had it happen in 2016 where people said they identified with certain communities that they were not a part of, and they got called out for that. So, there is a certain amount of an honesty system and an integrity system, but we allow people to self-identify, and I think that's really important because also I don't believe in setting requirements that I can't actually uphold, right? So there's no way for me to know, like look up every delegate and say, oh, how far are they away from the nearest feed store, right? Like that's not a thing. So we don't set rules that we can't actually uphold people to. So the rules are you're a registered Democrat who will be over the age of 18 by the date of the primary, or by the date of the general election, and everything else is self-identified. So
yeah, and
just
another thing to add, and Karen, I know you know this as a former vice chair of the party, there will be a voters pamphlet. And in that pamphlet, it'll say all of the different categories that you identify with, and people will call you out, and in all likelihood, it will hurt your campaign if you are saying that you are a veteran and you never served. Just be aware of that and know that will happen.
Real quick, anyone who has attended a national convention, please raise your hand. Okay, look around, everybody, and if you have questions that we're not going to be able to get to here, seek them out during this weekend and ask them about their experiences.
Awesome. I probably have time for one more question. If anyone has
that gentleman right there.
Is that a record?
Oh,
I don't know.
I have a comment if he doesn't have a question.
Question? Did you have a question?
Oh, I was going to ask about rural.
Oh, perfect. Great. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. Like I said, we have a website. It's dpo.org/2020. As more info comes in, we'll post it there. But there's already some great handouts. In the next week, we'll have our final approved delegate selection plan posted up there. We're really excited to share that with you. And we'll have lots more workshops and trainings and opportunities to ask questions. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.